Having been in China for so long, did you see the current crisis coming? And if you did, when did you see it? What were the telltale signs? And how is it playing out today? And how do you think it's going to play out going forward? For all those who complain that there is no domestic market in China, or China is not creating its domestic economy, it does have a huge domestic market in it.
I think, like so many facets of China over the last 30 years, I think China has been smart and intelligent in terms of policy, and it's been lucky as well. It's been fortunate because if you, in a way, China missed a bit of the bubble, a lot of the bubble, in respect of what happened in the West, in respect of asset bubbles, derivative products, or toxic assets. So that was a good thing. And in the phase that those assets were being built up, China was emerging as a banking sector. So the banks were not capable of really taking on huge amounts of that. There's some toxic assets on the books of Chinese institutions, but not that much. So that's one factor. Secondly, as far as my seeing the bubble, I am the worst forecaster ever known. So no, I didn't see the bubble. I would say that China's response to the bubble has been remarkable by discipline. I think if you look at the way the stimulus package rolls out, it's measured. It also has, ironically, because of the state apparatus, it has a distribution system that's able to take on those resources probably more efficiently than the U.S. Look at the debate in the U.S. versus private and public sector. Here you have less of that debate, ironically. So I think one is efficiency of just distributing fiscal resources. Third, I think that you have a part that's underestimated, the ability of the Chinese population to withstand some pain. I think there's a certain stoicism, and clearly the large savings pool that exists in China, both individually and institutionally, has kept those three factors, I would say, are three of the most important to weather the storm, so to speak.
You are in two businesses, advisory and private equity. You've got 5 funds, totaling about $500 million, so half a billion.
Those are already finished and distributed. So we're about ready to look at launching a new.
When was the last time you launched a fund?
Oh, that was 2002. So if you look back on that cycle, that was a pretty interesting cycle. I think that looking backwards, and I wish I could say this was prescient, but I would say that the fact that we didn't launch a fund, we launched the merchant bank first as an advisory firm in 2004. We didn't launch a fund then. Was a good thing, because I think we just came through a cycle where, frankly, anybody who invested a private equity fund in China, almost anybody, would have experienced a pretty tough time on returns right now.
So it wasn't by design, it was really that you...
Well, it was some design, because in 2004, what we saw as a firm is an awful lot of hot money, of first-round funds that were being started without really a focus, without experienced investors, that were looking for this rise of China to continue without change. And I think for anybody who's lived in Asia for 30 years, you and I would argue that cycles, even China is not immune to cycles. And so in 2004, we could say there's no question there's going to be a correction in this. Did we see that it was going to be as significant? No, we didn't, but you could see that correction.
Right. And the fund that you're about to start, what would it be invested in?
What will be focused on?
Yeah.
I would talk about themes first. I think if we look at a number of themes that I like to talk about, one is consolidation. I think China is going through the beginning of a phase where in almost every industry sector, Emmanuel, there will be fewer companies in 3 to 5 years as there are today. And part of that consolidation is a natural reflection of reform in the banking system. That survival will mean that the best will continue to raise capital, and those who fall behind are either going to have to consolidate or go away. So the consolidation. Secondly, privatization. That will be a very important theme. That even partial privatization. I think there are 3 types of of companies in China: the private sector, the public sector, and the privatizing sector. That middle ground are state-owned enterprises which are raising capital from the private sector. They're quasi-public, and I think this sector is going unnoticed. There are regional state-owned enterprises that are raising capital from private sources, and that's a deliberate policy. So that's a second phase. In terms of the third theme, it's quality of life. I think everything related to quality service sector. We've been through the manufacturing sector. It will continue to grow. There'll be a lot of consolidation in that sector, so that to invest across consolidation will be important. Automotive consolidation, machinery consolidation, construction equipment, those are sectors which will consolidate. Quality of life themes are probably self-explanatory.
Yep.
I think recreation, travel, healthcare, the financial services, personal financial services, whether it's in financial services related to the consumer or industrial financial services, are going to be very important growth themes. So those would be the key areas. And then finally, I would talk about China outbound. To invest in China's new reach beyond its shores will be an exciting and important opportunity. Companies that are now starting to reach out globally are going to be in need of branding, of technology, and partnership. So to use capital wisely and link it to China outbound as Chinese corporations reach out into Latin America, Southeast Asia, North America, and Europe, I think are going to be themes to invest in.
Do you see the role of the state sort of interfering in how private venture capitalists operate in China? And the state is at two levels. You've got the national centralized planning type of thinking in Beijing, looking at the large important sectors like airlines and utilities and so on. And then you have the provincial governments who themselves are owners of businesses. Do you see distortions in the way, is the government also going to be a competitor in some of the things you want to do?
Well, you know, the answer to the question is, you know, what is the government in China? I don't think there is the Chinese government anymore. I think it's a false concept. Just as it's a false concept is the American government. You'd have to say, what are you talking about? The State Department, Secretary of Commerce, the real nature of government, local, regional, or national, have different agendas. And if you talk to at the top of government, there is a huge debate in Beijing that goes towards whether the process of opening up continues in a reform mode, or whether China moves a bit towards the more conservative view, where picking winners and losers, or the state control of the economy of China will continue. That debate is unresolved, but I don't think it's an unhealthy debate. I think China has been very shrewd in letting those tensions work itself out,
right,
both in the marketplace of economics and the marketplace of ideas. That'll be a work in progress too. I think in respect of the nature of government, clearly China will macro-manage this society more and more. And I think that if you look at it philosophically, I think Beijing is putting a lot of faith in the Chinese people, and I think that's a pretty smart move. It's the rise of the middle class, the education. You know, China from 1949 to 1976 educated fewer than 300,000 students abroad. Think about that. From 76 to 2008, 36 million students have been educated abroad. And that cycle of now 2 or 3 generations of people who are brought back, I think there's the future of China.
Bob Theleen, thank you very much, and all the very best in your fund.
Thank you, Manuel. Thanks very much.